Our Value of Advice ebook and podcast series is proudly sponsored by MediHelp.
Hi, this is Tony at Cover. I'm speaking to Alec Riddle at Private Wealth. Alec, thank you very much for chatting to me today.
Pleasure. It's always good to connect.
Yep. Alec, we're also chatting a little bit about on the fact that you won the Financial Planner of the Year a while ago. This is part of a series where we're chatting to a whole group of you guys that have won over past years. I think this has been going for 22 or 23 years or something now. And just looking into your journey and some of the learnings along the way and what we can share with the guys that are maybe a bit new or that branching out independently, etc. And to see that. So thank you so much for being willing to share some of that. I'd like to start off with maybe your elevator pitches to who you are and what you do.
So basically, obviously we do lifestyle financial planning. And in a nutshell, my goal is to get the person from A to B and across the finishing line, particularly in the retirement market. It's a very challenging market for retirees as they transition from work life into retirement, both challenging from a mindset perspective, but also from a financial perspective. And my mantra has always been, I want to help the people to get across the finish line.
Absolutely. I think it's probably the crunch time for people because the earning capacity is going to reduce. Alec, in terms of your journey as a financial planner, and especially after you won Financial Planner of the Year and so on, how have you seen the industry evolve and what is your opinion as to where we are currently from an advice perspective?
Yeah, look, I definitely see a more professional profession than we had when I first came into the profession. I think the quality of advice is a lot better. There's still a lot of room for improvement. I'm still learning every day and every week, and we can all learn to serve our client better. So yeah, I've evolved with over time. You research. I'm one of those people who like to look under every stone and explore and so forth. So I don't know if you'd like me to continue and going into what one of my big projects is right now.
Yeah.
So one of my concerns in the retirement space is that the drawdown rate, the average drawdown rate in South Africa is exceptionally high. And within the next decade, half of retirees could essentially hit a brick wall, which means that they will no longer be able to take increases and will probably have to start reducing the income that they draw out of their living annuities due to the fact is that they might breach that or be in danger of breaching that 17.5% legislative limit. So I think the big challenge to us as financial planners is how do we help clients to get that drawdown rate to be lower and therefore prolong the plan? And obviously it's very difficult to tell a retiree that you need to change your budget and adjust your budget when you're halfway through your retirement. Although having attended a financial planning congress in America, they did speak about the 3 phases of retirement. And yes, there is a little bit less cost probably in the second half of retirement, but ideally you'd want your retirees or your clients to still have the same amount of income. So what I've been doing is I've been doing a lot of research and a lot of work on what I would call a blend of a living annuity and life annuity. Thankfully, due to changes in legislation and product enhancements, there are possibilities out there. And if we put it very simply, if we said a client had a 10 million rand living annuity and had a drawdown rate of 7.5%. Now, based on the CISA tables, and if we're targeting inflation plus 4 after fees, and we want escalations each year, that income will have to change after 13 years. So if we want to reduce the drawdown rate, for example, to 5%, then it would last 30 plus years. So you can almost double the duration of the plan if you can reduce the drawdown rate. And how I'm seeing that happen is by creating a blend. So if you took half of the money, for example, and you bought into a life annuity at, let's say, an average rate of 10%, with escalations, obviously that income is guaranteed now for life, and you want to ensure that it's guaranteed for the spouse as well. That half of the income is guaranteed for the rest of their lives, which is the most important thing. When people come to retirement, their first thing is, what happens if I die tomorrow? I want to leave the capital to my kids. What I've found with retirees is once they get into their 70s, they start to ask me, what happens if I live past tomorrow or 10 years' time? Then they want to make sure they've got income. So you're looking at a 10% drawdown on a life annuity, and you only need 7.5, which means you can now draw 5% on the half that remains in the living annuity, giving you an average of 7.5. But now the half that's in the living annuity, you're drawing 5%, which means that income that will last for 30 plus years, and the other income will last forever, for as long as you live. What I've also found in working with performance analysts and actuaries on this and backtesting all the data for as long as 24 years, putting it into funds, seeing how it would have performed, is we're finding we're able to create wealth for clients. Most clients are worried about buying into a life annuity, I'm going to lose half of my capital. That is true if you die in the short term. But what happens if you do live long and you stay in a living annuity? Then you have to knock on children's doors when the income runs short. And that's the worst legacy you can leave. Whereas in this case, you should take a little bit of a drop in the capital at the start, but your income is still there. And because you're drawing 5% on the living annuity portion, that 5 million actually catches up to the 10 million where you're drawing 7.5%. And generally that catches up around about mortality age. So I'm saying is to clients is if you live, we got to plan to live and not plan to die. So if you plan to live to mortality age, your beneficiaries are going to be in an equal position. If you live longer, you're going to be in a better position. They're going to be in a better position because there'll be more money to leave behind. If you live, yes, you have given up a little bit, but you want to secure your future. And it's not all about the kids. It's about the peace of mind of the retiree, the lifestyle and so forth. So I'm finding a lot of success in this space, working a lot in this space. And yeah, I just believe that we can change the retirement landscape as long as it's done properly.
Yeah. It sounds a bit like a no-brainer to go that route.
I've sat with some clients whose plans were slightly underfunded, perhaps inadequate capital when they started, but also bear in mind, up until the end of June, the average South African balance fund only produced 8% per annum, whereas you were targeting, let's say, 10. So the funds were also underperforming, which put plans on strain. But I was sitting with clients and just to have grown men cry because suddenly they see the light, and peace of mind is just, it is, I don't know what the word is, but so heartening as a financial planner to be able to give these clients the security that they will never, one, have to knock on their children's door, that they will never run short of income, and that they could leave a better legacy behind in terms of the capital if they do live long.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. Now, Alec, from your perspective, when you look at the professional advice space at the moment and where we are at, taking into account these challenges that you were talking about, retirement as well, what are the biggest challenges facing professional advisors?
I don't know if it sounds obvious or it sounds not so nice, but the biggest challenge is getting all planners to put the client first and to forget about putting themselves first, what they can earn out of it and so forth. I just take the blended annuity space. I've discussed it with a few planners in the industry and who I know or friends or whatever the case. And I say, why are you creating all this extra work for yourself? I want to make sure that the client is okay. Also, by doing these transitions, I am actually cutting my income ever so slightly as well. But it's a price I'm willing to pay for better outcomes. So one is you've got to put the client first. Number two, you've got to revisit. So you've got to look at the probability of failure. And I attended that convention in San Diego in 2011, where they spoke about probability of failure. And it's something I've always looked at. Basically, it says that if you develop a plan for a client, and it's a static plan, the probability of failure is 4 times greater when that plan is reviewed every year. And if you think that, I don't know what the percentage is, very high of how many people have got a living annuity as an example, who don't have a financial plan, either because they've been disillusioned or the plan has moved overseas or the plan has passed away, or for whatever reason, there are thousands upon thousands of people who are not getting regular advice. And they are increasing their probability of failure by 4-fold as a result of that. So what are the things that we can really control? Obviously, the drawdown rate is one. That is the thing. And the portfolio composition. Those are the things that we can control. We can't control markets. We can't control, the client can control spending. We can't do that. So we got to focus on the things that we can control. And by ever so subtly changing that portfolio composition, we can impact the drawdown and we can change. And as I say, this was something I was privy to in 2011 already at that FPA convention in San Diego. And it's really, I'm starting to see, I'm fortunate through having access to actuaries and performance analysts to run the numbers. And the one actuary actually said to me in a meeting with there were other people, he said, normally I check my work 2 or 3 times, but on this information, Alec wanted to actually check the work 6 times because I could not believe what he was telling me would actually happen. And it did. The clients are better off in almost every eventuality if they do make those type of changes. It's something we've got to grapple around. A few years ago, probably 90% of the people in retirement were in living annuities. We are starting to see a change. More and more people are looking at either a life annuity or a blend. And it's, at the moment, it's a very opportune time. We've got very high yields. So the yields have been very attractive the past 12 months. And it's just, I think coming back to your question, what is the biggest challenge facing financial planners is being prepared to get out of your comfort zone and change with the times.
And because obviously there are longer term benefits because you're building a sustainable business for yourself.
I'm actually glad you mentioned that because I'm actually doing a presentation to a financial planning firm next week on this. Probably be about 60 planners attending and so forth. And incidentally, so who benefits? Number one, the client benefits. Number two, the financial planner benefits. Yes, you might take a slight drop in income to start with, but you're able then to retain those assets for so much longer. We use that example of the 10 million. And if the client's drawing 7.5%, he's starting to dip into capital after 10 years. Yeah. So the capital starts to reduce. Very soon, there is no capital. Whereas if you're on a 5% drawdown on the 5 million, that 5 million is increasing year after year and so forth. So there's more longevity on the books for the business, for the planner. And another important feature of this, if we're speaking to planners, is it is a great opportunity to meet and have discussions with the adult children about this, because I've done that a number of times. I've said to the client, look, Brian Z, we're going to be the beneficiaries. We need to make sure that they are comfortable with what we are doing. And then we'll have a discussion. And these 30, 40-year-olds say, absolutely, you've got to do. It's great for my parents. We're not worried about the capital. The parents are more worried than the children. And now you've met the adult children. They've seen the value that you're adding to their parents' lives, that when they do eventually inherit that living annuity, you are potentially first in line to retain that business. If you don't have any contact with those adult children, what's going to happen? It's going somewhere else. You're losing it. So it's about longevity in the relationship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what role do you think the industry can play that they can, or increasing what they currently do to assist professional advisors to make that transition into that sort of mindset where it might involve their income dipping slightly?
Yeah, I think it's a thing that, as I say, I've been quite proactive in the last 3-4 years. Alec Gray have a very good product. We're in conjunction with Just. So they're up and running and have been for probably 4 or 5 years and so forth. I think there are 1 or 2 other companies who've already got products online. I know that Old Mutual Wealth are busy developing a blended product, but I'm not sure when that will come to market, whether it'll be 2025 or 2026. But one can't sit back and wait for 2025 and 2026. One's got to act quickly. Annuity rates are very good right now. But every year that you wait, that you put in the client at risk. So, for example, if we go back to my 10 million rand living annuity, 7.5% draw, that's fine. I draw 7.5% and I maybe get a 9 or 10% return. So I get a little bit of increase in capital, can possibly afford to pass on a little bit of increase to the client, but not much. But what happens if we have a 2008, 2009 financial crisis? That 10 million potentially becomes 7 million.
Yeah.
No, 7.5 million. Now you're drawing 7. Now you're doing your 750,000. Now you're drawing 10%. Your drawdown rate has gone up 33%.
Yeah.
And then that plan is decimated. It will be carnage. As soon as we have a financial crisis, all those people who've got drawdown rates of 7.5, 8%, which I think 8%, close to 8% is probably the industry average. Any crisis comes, those clients are in deep trouble, and we've got to get to them before any crisis arrives.
Yeah. Yeah. But basically what you're also saying then is that there's a sort of a duty on the industry to ensure that they don't punt products that aren't necessarily sustainable for clients as well, and that they should look at what is going to be sustainable, and in their sort of promotion of products with advisors, they should keep that into account.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's about changing the mindset of the financial planner, because you got a financial planner who's living in annuities for the last 20 years. And obviously you've been in the industry 20 years, you're in a very comfortable position within your business. And do you want to make changes for the clients?
Yeah.
Or do you want to, sit in comfort? But the problem is we have a responsibility to our clients. Our clients have made and helped us to develop the life that we've managed to create for ourselves. And we've got to do our best for the clients. And that's where I'd come back to my mantra. It's all about trying to get the client from A to B and across that finishing line.
Yeah. That really is the message that comes from every single financial planner winner from the past. That same message comes through with the client first. Just as a last sort of point from yourself, tips for advisors going independent, wanting to go independent from where they are, etc., in terms of building a sustainable practice. Where do you start?
Okay, so I just attended a summit called Mutual Wealth Summit at Frankfurt. I got back last night. And Evan Barr was one of the presenters. He spoke about what's happening in the industry. And then Dan Halett from the UK was out here telling us what's happening in the UK space. And of course, we know what generally happens in the UK space happens over here as well. And there are lots of challenges on the horizon for planners, for independents, and so forth with the compliance. They estimate that I think it's 14% of people have moved out of the business because the cost of compliance and due care and all of these things is just too much. And they're finding that people are looking for a succession plan. Obviously the goal initially was to try and transfer to somebody just like me, was what they said. And they are finding that whereas they were expecting 40, let's say 50% to go to people just like me, that's happening to be 20%. And 40 to 50% are linking up with bigger organizations because of scale. The compliance is already in place and so forth. So yeah, I look at myself and I say, I'm with private wealth management, been there 8 years, and I could not venture away from here and be an independent. We've got our independence in the sense that we can use any company, Ray, Investec, or 91, I should say, or Mutual Wealth, etc. But we've got the backing, we've got the compliance in place and so forth. And when all these new legislations come out, we don't have to spend our time studying it and so forth. So I would encourage any young planner to try and link up with an organization that has this in place, because from what I've heard these last 2 days, it's just going to get harder and harder for people to be operating on their own.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's become so expensive also from a technology perspective and all of that to keep up. It's just almost impossible. Yeah,
absolutely.
No, absolutely. Alec, thank you so much. It was great chatting to you again, catching up. And
thanks. I really appreciate it.